Hi, I'm Sandra Palomino, Director of Historical Manuscripts at Heritage Auction Galleries, and we're visiting today with Claude and Inez Harkins, and they'll be giving us a tour of their wonderful Freedom collection of early Americana. Claude, can you tell me a little bit about how you got started collecting?
Well, I was a typical 12-year-old collecting arrowheads and coins and stamps. My mother acquired a collection of Indian relics from a Creek Indian village site from the burial site, and there were several hundred items, and I converted my 10 by 10 foot playhouse into a museum, and field trips from my school classes would come down to see my artifacts, and I became a museum curator. And then from there, I evolved in my adult life into collecting Civil War items, then Revolutionary War items, which is the reason we're here right now. And I now have a 3,800 square foot playhouse that we live in. And I'd like to take you throughout the place to see all the wonderful treasures that we have. This is a painting of George Washington. The title is Washington at Trenton. It's after John Trumbull, and it was done by Adolph Ulrich Whitmiller, who Washington sat for on one occasion. What's unique about it is on cradle board. And then I'd like to move to this beautiful bronze bust done by Houdon. This is a copy of the original one that was done in 1785. At Mount Vernon by the French sculptress Houdon. Now I'd like to show you this terracotta bust that was done by Charles Louis Courbet, who was a protege of Houdon, who made the original light mask of Washington in 1785. It is now at Mount Vernon, as I told you. So this is an original terracotta. No reproductions have been made of this, of George Washington. This is a copy of the famous Lansdowne painting done by Gilbert Stuart. The original's in the White House at this particular time. This was done by Sanford Mason in the early 1800s. This is a very famous painting titled The Death of General Wolfe. This actually illustrates the end of the French and Indian War at Quebec. General Wolfe is laying there mortally wounded, and here his compatriots are around him. This particular painting, the original, was done by Benjamin West. This was done in his studio and was assumed by his son. This is a very famous engraving of the death of General Wolfe that thousands of these have been produced. We found through our research that the Princess Frederica, who was the daughter-in-law of King George, and she was Duchess of York, actually owned this engraving, and it was in her museum.
What sets the Freedom Collection apart is its use of both manuscripts and relics to tell the story of the founding of this great nation. Claude, tell me a little bit about the flag here.
Well, this flag is known as the American Seaman Prisoners Flag. This is actually a painting of it. The original's at the Betsy Ross exhibit at Winterthur Museum just outside of Wilmington. And this little 8 by 13 inch flag was actually made by an American seaman when they got word at the prison in Plymouth, England, that Yorktown had occurred, the surrender had occurred on October the 19th, 1781, and probably in December of that same year, a newspaper arrived wrapped around a loaf of bread, and the prisoner saw that in the paper that about the Yorktown surrender, and the word spread throughout the prison, and all the other seamen started making flags out of 13-star flags out of paper and cloth. And this is one of the flags that originated there. The blue and the red fabric is actually made from British uniform.
Claude, it's my understanding that the first mention of the design of the Stars and Stripes doesn't occur until 1777, but you have a letter that predates that. Can you tell me a little bit about that letter?
Yes, it was a letter written April the 28th, 1776 by William Whipple a sign of the Declaration of Independence, and he is writing to John Langdon, who is a sign of the Constitution, and they had correspondence going on like this, and buried in this letter, it's talking about the colors, 13 stripes, red and white, and with a union. And this is the first mention 2 weeks before the Declaration of Independence was signed, and between July and April, that was the same time frame that Washington visited the Congress in Philadelphia in May. And that's the myth associated with Betsy Ross and Washington actually visiting with her and talking about a flag design. It was only until 14 months later, on June the 14th, 1777, that the flag resolution was adopted by the Congress.
One of the great flags in this collection is the Pierre l'Enfant 13-star flag. Can you describe that a little bit for us?
Yes, it's made out of silk. It is the first flag to actually have the stars in an oval, and the stars themselves are gold leaf stars.
Now, how about this plate here?
Well, this is a wonderful plate. This is one of 301 pieces that George and Arthur Washington ordered from China. And it's known as Society of Cincinnati plate. It's the first presidential china. This actually shows the Society of Cincinnati medal there. And I believe there's some 60 of those at Winterthur Museum outside of Wilmington, Delaware.
Now, the Freedom Collection isn't just about the founding of this great nation. We actually have relics that bring us well into the 20th century, including an Apollo 11 flown flag that was actually landed on the moon and signed by Buzz Aldrin. Now, a big part of the collection focuses on George and Martha Washington, and we have a lot of relics that were personal items that they used in their day-to-day lives. Can you tell us a little bit about a few of these relics?
Yes, this is a plate that Martha referred to as in common use, everyday china. This is a Revolutionary War camp set plate that Washington used and actually ate off of. These are ivory miniatures of George Washington. My favorite is this one of Edward Savage, where Washington is actually sitting at a table with a map of Washington, D.C. in it. This is a very fine jewel shoe buckle that was one of a pair that was actually given to George Washington for his first inaugural gift.
And of course, there's Martha's riding veil. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, the riding veil is made out of handmade Brussels lace. It's approximately 8 feet long. It was used by her in carriage rides.
And of course, there's this wonderful large lock of George Washington's hair that you have here.
Yeah, this is the largest known hair lock of George Washington. It's 9 inches in length. It's reddish brown hair. It's not like the way you see him with white hair.
And of course, there's this wonderful Society of Cincinnati ribbon here. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, this was designed by Pierre l'Enfant also, and anyone that was a member of the Society of Cincinnati actually purchased this and wore this.
For the seeds of liberty are universally sown there, nothing can eradicate them. Thus wrote Franklin to his dear friend Lord Kymes. The printer-turned-diplomat demonstrates here why he was one of the keenest practical political thinkers of his time. This is the earliest prediction of an American rebellion, a full 8 years before the first shots were fired at Lexington. This letter is one of his most quoted and is used in almost every biography written about him. There are images of every single page of this great letter at our website, and I strongly recommend visiting and taking a moment to read the letter in its entirety. We're going to finish our tour today with this wonderful grouping of pistols and powder horns that date back from the Revolutionary War. Claude, can you tell me a little bit about this pistol?
Yes, this is a double-barrel flintlock pistol that was actually owned by Hugh Maxwell, who was a Minuteman, and he was wounded at Bunker Hill in his left shoulder. He followed Washington across the Delaware and also was at Yorktown.
Now, what about these horns? How did they get these intricate carvings?
Well, engravers followed Washington's army, And we're paid to actually do these intricate engravings on the powder horns. It's one of the earliest form of folk art.
This 1777 engraved powder horn depicts Philadelphia Harbor during the celebration of the first anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Its design includes 3 13-star flags, making this one of the earliest artistic depictions of our stars and stripes. Thank you for spending some time with us today, visiting with Claude and Inez Harkins and looking at some of the items in the Freedom Collection. Remember to visit the webpage for the Benjamin Franklin autograph letters signed, which originated in this very important collection. For more information about collecting historical Americana, visit our historical homepage, where we currently have posted auctions for rare books, manuscripts, Civil War, militaria, political Americana, and Western.